This commission was constituted by the World Council of Churches in November 2023 for a 7-year period, and it consists of about 30 members drawn from member churches of the World Council of Churches from all the continents around the world. These are academics, activists, clergy, theologians, economists, people from different backgrounds. And since climate change and climate justice, sustainable development are very complex and technical issues, it was so wise that at the beginning of our work, we have intensive training to make sure that members of the commission are on the same page. It covers issues of science, what the science is saying about climate change and climate justice. It covers the issues of the economy, what impacts it has on the economy, the financial implications, but most importantly also how climate change affects communities and the vulnerable. So we have started yesterday with this intensive training. It will be for a period of 3 days. And then the second part of the meeting will also be to review our work of last year and also to plan for 2025.
Now, Mr. Dembas, how concerning is climate change, and what role can then churches play in the way it impacts the socio-economic vulnerability?
Yes, climate change is no more a weather crisis. It has become a socio-economic and a political crisis. The impacts of climate change are being felt all around the world. As the scientists have warned 10, 20 years ago, we are starting to see the impacts of climate change with the change in weather patterns. There are people from, for example, on our commission from small island states which are being submerged in water due to the rising seas and so on. There are people affected by drought, by flooding, and all kinds of climate change consequences. So it is indeed a crisis. There's been a loss and damage fund set up to mitigate and help people to adapt, but the funding is lagging behind, and it's really presenting a crisis, especially to the most vulnerable. And the churches are calling upon world leaders on the corporate sector to act responsibly so that we can save the planet, the only planet that we have as human beings.
Now, in the same vein, the Commission is aiming and mobilizing and coordinating with empowering the members. In what ways are the member churches then empowered?
Yes, we are looking at different strategies about how to achieve our goals as a commission. One is to, particularly through this training, we are considering looking at the legal remedies that might be there. Are there provisions in international law that we can use to litigate on behalf of especially vulnerable people, communities? Are there other avenues where we can put pressure through local legislation, but also through strengthening the existing conventions and protocols around the protection of the environment? So how can we intensify lobbying and advocacy at the UN level, through our national governments, at the regional bodies like SADC and so on? So we are looking at all avenues and all kinds of strategies we can engage to ensure that there is collective action with a sense of urgency to address the climate crisis. The climate crisis also has impact on other basic human rights of people, the basics of right to food, to shelter, to the basic needs that ordinary people have. So it's really a life and death and a bread and butter issue for many of us. It's not only just a science. People live and experience climate change on a daily basis, and the vulnerable are really struggling to survive and to cope.
Okay. Now, Mr. Dembas, how can then the church members and the community at large advocate for climate change or climate justice?
Yes, we are. There's a number of resource material that has been developed. There are tools that have been made available to churches at various levels, including at the local parishes and at the national level, where, for example, churches are being urged to use contextual Bible studies as a means to let people understand. Sometimes when we talk about these big terms of climate change and climate justice, it seems as if these are new things for ordinary people, but we would realize that if we draw this closer to home and relate this to what people are going through on a daily basis, people quickly understand these issues. We also, as churches, are letting people understand that this is a biblical and a theological question, and that we as human beings have a special responsibility to take care of the environment through the instructions in the first book of the Bible, Genesis, the creation story, where we are given particular responsibilities to take care of the environment. So we are providing tools and resources to churches around the world in collaboration with civil society and other actors, other social movements, so that we can jointly, as a collective, impact upon this. At home, for example, we have the Just Energy Transition Project that the Council of Churches in Namibia, with member churches and with the Africa Institute for Environmental Law, has been embarking upon since last year, looking at what are the particular challenges of climate change in Namibia and how do we deal with the dilemmas of oil extraction versus the impact that it has on the climate crisis and so on. So we will be doing a lot of advocacy skills training to help local communities to advocate for this kind of initiatives.
Okay. Now, Dembas, finally, what are your overall expectations after the 3-day training?
Well, I'm representing Southern Africa on this 30-member commission. We are 3 from the African continent. There's another sister from Rwanda and another brother from Ethiopia. But in terms of Southern Africa, we are tasked to take this message forward, these resources, and to share with the member churches back at home first, through my own church, the Lutheran Church, but also through the Council of Churches in Namibia with civil society. But I also have a responsibility to share this work with other member churches in the Southern Africa region through the Fellowship of Christian Councils in Southern Africa. Also this year, South Africa is the G20 president, and there will be meetings of the World Council of Churches Central Committee in South Africa in June, and we will be making use of these platforms to launch the Decade for Action on Climate Justice during the meeting of the World Council of Churches Central Committee in Johannesburg. So all this work is in preparation for some of those global and local campaigns that we will be undertaking in 2025.
Okay. Mr. Uhuru Dembas, moving to back home. Today, the 4th of February, marks a year since President Geingobb's passing. What's the most enduring memory you carry with you of him, either professionally or personally?
Well, yes, it was a difficult day. I remember I was in Cape Town for the alternative mining in Daba. I just arrived at night, and when I woke up in Cape Town the next morning, this mixed sad messages was really a devastating blow. It is indeed a difficult day for us as Namibians. A year passed, but we're still recovering from that ordeal. I had lots of engagements with Dr. Hage Gottfried Geingob, but the one I would forever cherish is a one-on-one meeting that I had with President Geingob on the 21st of October 2021 in his office for an hour, just the two of us. This was after I visited about 8 regions and looked at the devastating impact of COVID, and where I was discussing some ideas with the president in terms of what we can do about the situation. It's a moment that I will cherish and remember, and the task and what we had agreed then at that meeting. Some of the work that I continue to do, and we salute and thank Dr. Geingob for what he could do for us from his young age up to the last day in office, and we will try by all means to keep his legacy, and we ask God to grant him a peaceful rest.